Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Chattering with Nicholas Vince, and I'm going to be chattering with Laurence Harvey in just a few moments. Before I do that, there are just a couple of things I want to share with everybody. First off, I want to share my t-shirt. This is Fright Night, You're So Cool, Brewster. Just in case anybody hasn't seen it, please look out for some ridiculous photographs of myself and Simon Bamford. He looks really good because he looks like Roddy McDowell. I got all the really rubbish wigs and teeth that kept on moving across my mouth like that. This is all part of the documentary, the DVD extras from Cult Screenings, Dead Mouse Productions, which will be coming out sometime next year. And I'm going to bring those boys onto the show again because they did the Love Earth and Hellraiser documentary. Simon and I had a wonderful day acting together for the first time in nearly 30 years. Well, since we finished Nightbreed, in fact. The other thing I want to share with you very briefly is if I can turn around without actually losing my earpiece. Bear with me. Hopefully you can still hear me. And this, I received this in, well, you're going to get a lot of reflection. Let me see if I can angle it down a bit. This is from a gentleman called Andrew Tong, who very kindly sent me this absolutely beautifully framed photograph of myself and Chatter. You may have seen this on my timeline once or twice, but I'm very, very delighted that Andrew very kindly sent a framed copy of that and the photograph that he's based it on is by a young gentleman named Adam Turner as well. The other thing I have to announce and remind people about, I know they're mostly sold out, but if you can get one, that's the Hellraiser Scarlet box set. It's amazing. I kind of got this when I was at Graham Humphrey's exhibition, and that's Graham Humphreys did that artwork the other evening, and so I haven't had a chance to watch all of the stuff, but I'm rereading some of the booklets, and there is stuff in there that I did not know about it, about how Clive came to create Hellraiser, etc. I'm really looking forward to delving into the DVD extras and having a watch of. I have some friends around to watch Hellraiser, because none of my friends, yeah, there may be a few who haven't watched Hellraiser, you never know. And the other thing to remind you guys of is that if you are on Twitter and want to tweet things about the show, just put in a hashtag ChatteringNick, and I will see you and I will share those with you. Craig is on comments on YouTube and on Google, so he will share questions and so on, and we will try and get some of you on to ask questions of Laurence later on. Cool. Would you like to say hello, Laurence?
Hello, Laurence.
I don't know why.
The oldies but goodies.
I really should know better by now, shouldn't I? How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I promised that we're going to come back and talk about these properly, but you wanted to mention the Editor and Frankenstein created Bikers as two most recent pieces of work that you worked on. The Editor is already out, is that right?
Well, I mean, the Editor's out in the States and on DVD and Blu-ray in the States and Canada. It's going to be coming out in the UK probably at the end of probably the beginning of next year, so just after Christmas.
Right.
I think it's just come out in Australia or this week, or it's coming out this coming week, kind of thing. So. Yeah.
Oh, cool! And I think Frankenstein created Bikers is still
going to be out sometime next year.
Yeah, it's still in post-production at the moment, isn't it? Yeah. So I'd like to get these plugs done because then we don't have to worry about them. We are going to talk about them in more detail later on.
And the Tales of H.P. Lovecraft. It's an album by the Duke Street Workshop with spoken word by me.
Oh, okay. Well, let's start with that then. My fault. I didn't take a note of that one. So tell me about the Tales of H.P. Lovecraft. Sorry, from whom?
It's there's a local band in Wigan here, my hometown, and they're called the Duke Street Workshop, and you can find them on Bandcamp, and they're on SoundCloud if you want to take a listen. They're very kind of John Carpenter-esque synths, and they're very influenced by Giallo soundtracks and so on. And they've, I liked their stuff, and they're huge horror fans, and we met in the local record shop, and yeah, we got on like a house on fire, and yeah, so we decided to work together because we were having this discussion about soundtracks, and then it shifted to if you grew up in the 70s and 80s, you would have you would have got there was loads of audiobooks by Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and that kind of thing, reading stories from Edgar Allan Poe or sort of H.G. Wells, kind of more horror kind of tinge, like the Invisible Man and the Island of Dr. Moreau kind of thing. So they were kind of audiobooks on cassette. And we were kind of talking about that and talking about soundtracks, and then the idea came to do this kind of spoken word album. It's not an audiobook. It is very much the music's equally, or if not more important than the spoken word. But yeah, it's taken two stories from H.P. Lovecraft, From Beyond and The Hound. Each story is on a side of the LP, and yeah, it sounds really good. We're just waiting for the pressing, and there's a publicity company become involved, so I think it should be very, very good.
It sounds fascinating. And this is basically what you do mean LP. You mean one of those circular disky things that you
yes,
put on
on vinyl. Yes, yeah. So yeah, that's coming out on January the 16th, and it's a fairly limited run. I think it's going to be 300, but it might be 500 now. I think because of the interest that's being expressed. But yeah, it'll be a relatively small run, so it'll be quite collectible, hopefully.
How will people be able to get? Is there a website or?
Well, Static Caravan is the label that it's coming out on.
Right.
They've got a website, and you can order directly from them. There'll be something on the Duke Street Workshop Bandcamp page, but I think also hoping to get distributed in the US by Mondo as one of the Mondo Selects kind of titles, or one of their distributed titles anyway on their website. So hopefully it should also be available from transmission in the UK, and hopefully some other soundtrack specialist websites and labels like One Way Static and Waxwork. Hopefully, nothing's confirmed that way yet, but Mondo's the one that's come forward with an interest anyway. So.
Oh, cool. So possibly Mondo as well. Okay, so I'll see if I can find some links to Static Caravan and Duke Street, just so people, and I'll post them up on thing. A quick comment from Kelly Rawn, one of our regular watchers, viewers. Your editor role was fabulous. You absolutely owned it.
Thank you very much.
So before we start getting into the editor and film stuff and so on, which I Human Centipede, obviously, we'll be talking about later on.
The Human Centipede 2 and 3.
The Human Centipede 2 and 3, not the Human Centipede. But I had to. I dutifully watched all three because I thought I can't really watch 2, which is because your character Martin Lomax is so obviously inspired by number 1, without really understanding what it is he's been inspired by.
Yeah.
But we'll come to that later on. So how did you start off in acting? What inspired you to become an actor?
Well, I started out as a painter. I went to studied fine art, and on my degree course there was 4 areas. There was painting, printmaking, sculpture, and time-based media. So, which was basically performance, film, video, and sound. And I'd kind of gone to art college with the hope of trying to move into film rather than staying in painting. So So I'd applied to colleges that had where it was you could change to film through the course. But on I think my third week in college, I did a solo performance workshop, and I did a performance that made people cry. And the performance tutor the fourth area tutor just said, you've got to choose when it comes to choosing your major, you've got to come into our area because you've got a talent. So I did that, and haven't looked back since. And then when I was working in the performance art world, I straight after college, I was quickly sort of doing a lot of stuff, but needed. It was always kind of very hand to mouth kind of existence, and then I started doing acting as a way of getting money for the performance art, and then it just kind of took over in a way. So, but I was doing performance right up until a couple of years ago. I mean, it's a bit hard to do here in Wigan because there's no gallery or theatre or art space. So I've kind of abandoned it, and I've kind of lost contact with the contacts that I had in the art world. Not drastically. I still keep in touch with a few people on Facebook, but I just trying to concentrate on the acting.
I say, okay, so I'm going to ask you a little bit about performance art in a moment, but I'm still fascinated by the fact that you were painting to begin with. What sort of painting? What sort of art? Do you still sketch or paint? Or
I still sketch every now and again, but it's not something I do regularly. Painting, I'm not. I wouldn't call myself a great painter.
But, what sort of medium did you used to work in?
Oils and acrylic. Oils and acrylic mainly. Some watercolor. But,
I'm fascinated by all that stuff, and I am always fascinated by, because I kind of do graphic-y stuff, but I can't draw. I just like moving images around and putting them together. I did try learning watercolors. I did it for about a term and a half. I just thought it's just too hard.
Well, watercolors are particularly hard, I think, because in a sense, because of the medium, you've got to play with it going wrong anyway.
Yeah.
Because you add a color and then the water, and it just spreads it out in a different way, and how you utilize the water to. It's about creating happy accidents rather than literally transcribing what you're thinking. So.
Yes. Yeah. So I just lost patience with it, basically, and just thought, no.
I think as a painter, it's very much about transcribing what was in my head. So somebody said that when I paint, I draw. So it's not. They dismissed it as not painting, but as drawing in paint. I guess that's kind of true. So was this imagination stuff, or was this landscapes or portraits, or what? It was mainly self portraits, but I tried to sort of use some kind of there was a narrative element in each of the portraits. They were kind of fantasy self portraits.
Oh, do you see? One day you have to show me these, and I think people would be fascinated.
I don't mean fantasy in the kind of like Conan the Barbarian way. But more a kind of Cindy Sherman way of dressing up and pretending to be different characters and doing.
This sounds fascinating, Laurence. I mean, I want to see these now. I'm absolutely intrigued by these. Have you ever exhibited them or done anything with them?
No. I mean, most of my kind of professional art stuff was the performance art stuff. So it's I've never really exhibited my paintings or drawings.
Okay, so talk to me about performance art. I think it's one of those phrases that people are never quite sure what it means, and how those things meld together. What sort of stuff did you do?
Well, I was really influenced by Spalding Gray. I don't know if you've seen Swimming to Cambodia. I mean, he's basically a monologuist,
Right.
and in a sense, it's kind of autobiographical, but also documentary, and it's a kind of mix of things like that. So I was kind of influenced by performance being kind of a documentary style performance. So my performances were often kind of lecture based, but then within performance art, there's also this whole body of work that's about sort of systemic actions,
Right.
building up actions through repetition and so on. And so I was trying to marry the two together. So you'd have like a formal conceptual sort of idea of what would be happening in the space, and then you'd also have a kind of autobiographical or a researched kind of documentary style narrative going on as well. So these two things would be mixed together.
So what sort of, so okay, I know that's beautifully described and so on. So I'm a member of the audience. I come in, I sit down, and just talk me through the first 2 or 3 minutes of something, if you can. He says, but really putting Laurence on the spot because he hasn't done it for at least 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I could tell you a specific performance, but then that's not really talking about performance art generally. What I mean, performance art, it comes from like artists' involvement in cabaret and theatre, but
right,
building up a set of rules and a kind of notion of what's a notion of kind of anti-theatre, or what's. I mean, when I was studying, a lot of performances defining itself as being not theatre. So like whatever you said, it had to be kind of factual or based in the moment rather than a false psychological reality, like a script.
right.
But then, I was kind of interested in the way that the way that you say something when you've memorized it is different from reading it and is different from improvising something.
Sure.
So I was interested in playing around with those different manners of delivery, I suppose. So I would use, sometimes I would use a script that I'd learned, and sometimes I'd just kind of semi-improvise things or read.
How long would performances go on for? Because effectively were these one man performances, or
a lot of them were, but others were in collaboration with other people. When I was at college, I was working a lot with Stephen Taylor Woodrow, who did the living paintings, which now every kind of mime artist in the corner, they pretend to be living statues. Kind of
right.
But originally, that sort of comes from a performance art kind of thing. But once you've done it once, or once a couple of people have done it, then it kind of loses any. You've got to bring something new to the idea rather than which I think somebody like Franco B does, where he stands there and bleeds. Or in his early pieces, he did. But
yeah, that sounds really icky.
Yeah, I didn't do any of the icky or more body-centered stuff, but that's part of performance art.
Right. So you did performance arts, you did acting to kind of support the performance art.
Yeah.
And so on. So what sort of acting did you start off by doing?
Well, as I said, I was working with Stephen Taylor Woodrow when I was still at college, kind of thing. He did a thing called The Birds, which was a group of people with birds' heads on, congregating and then dispersing through areas of a city, and it would be like Hyde Park in London, or through parts of Glasgow when it was just before. It was 1990 was the year of culture in Glasgow, and I think they invited us as one of the inaugural pieces, and so we were there in '89 doing that. And we did By the Serpentine through Hyde Park in London the same year. He did it in a few cities. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, he started working with his kind of designer and co-creator Peter Cox, who comes from a design kind of side of things, and then they started doing Saturday morning TV shows, like characters for Saturday morning TV shows. So they did these kind of maggots on. The two of them dressed up as maggots and were doing these kind of spoof moments within number 73. Which,
okay, so just to explain to American viewers, and actually probably to quite a few British viewers as well, who are not as old as me. Great. Number 73 was a morning kids morning show on Saturday morning.
Well, I guess we should say that throughout most of like the 70s, 80s, and most of the 90s, you had a 2-hour slot in the morning, both on the main channels, which was basically a magazine program where you'd have cartoons, maybe a bit of live drama, like kind of Hannah Montana, like an important program that's kind of split up, and shown in installments through the thing. I guess American viewers, if they think of the banana splits, but take that and have it for 2 hours,
because I mean we had the banana splits, programs were imported as well, and I think that but number 73 was really kind. And again, for British viewers, this is where Sandy Toksvig started out. He used to love watching.
It's what introduced Frank Sidewalk into the mainstream as well. I mean, he was kind of well known in the kind of alternative era and alternative scene and the Manchester scene, but with number 73 he became more into the mainstream, if he wasn't the mainstream.
I was going to say, because Frank Sidebottom again is worth interest, because this is the guy that doesn't recognize the big head,
papier-mâché head,
big papier-mâché head, was an actor, and they then made a film just recently, last year or so, called Frank, inspired by that. I'm trying to think who starred. It was Michael Fassbender. I'm hearing voices. Yes, I have the advantage of a Craig downstairs, Laurence.
Yeah.
I thought it was Fassbender, but just wanted to double check, because it was just really. He's put a paper maché. I've not actually seen the movie. I mean, Frank Sidebottom.
It is good, but it's nothing to do with Frank Sidebottom's real life. It's kind of more based on like Captain Beefheart.
Yeah. Very, very strange. Yeah, so you did some doing things like number 73.
So, I didn't do 73, but Stephen and Woody, Stephen Taylor and Peter Cox were devising characters, and so they got me involved with because at this stage Peter was involved with Stephen's artwork stuff as well. So we did like I did a piece called Going Bye-Byes. I worked on it for, it was a Stephen Taylor Woodrow's piece, but I worked on it in Roubaix in France. It's like a giant Greek, there's a full-size Greek temple that was a supermarket inside, and everything was painted mint green, including me. So that was,
sorry, you were painted mint green. I'm laughing. Was this a humorous piece, or what was the?
No, it was the atmosphere was kind of sickly and kind of odd. Basically, it's kind of there was kind of very slow, a slowed down version of the theme from An Homme Une Femme, the da 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 ba 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 ba. It's,
I know
Leon Lai, the composer. But anyway, it was kind of dreamy and unsettling, but also I guess kind of comical as well. But, yeah, but it wasn't obviously funny kind of thing. So.
Right. So so you do performance art stuff. You did
Yeah.
some television. You did some children's.
Well, I started doing television with them because they on WhatsApp Doc, like they had a number of characters. Sintel would have had a character called Simon Perry, who was a cheese obsessive, a cheese ranger, he called himself. But he was all in an anorak and so on. And then that character kind of became norm on the Twix adverts.
Right.
A few years later. And then, but Peter Cox was doing characters like Gaston the Frog, who was this frog with amputated legs. And he was in a wheelchair and he had bloody stumps. So, but yeah, he was just talking. He's in a full body frog costume and speaking with an atrocious French accent. And then they'd bring in like Laurence the Gnome, or then they had me playing like a little boy or a little girl, and in a kind of, for me to get smacked in the face with a cold fish or something.
Meanies.
So, but anyway, then from that, then Peter and Peter Cox moved, and some of the production team moved over to the BBC show called Parallel 9, which was in its third season, and it was one of those shows that the first season, at the end of the first season, they were going to cancel it.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. They said revamp it with a different script team and so on. And then the second season went much better than got better ratings than the first season. So then they decided to bring in more, like continue changing it that way, kind of thing. So then they brought in, like Mark Billingham had been brought in on season 2, and he was one of the writers on Maid Marian, the TV show, the kind of kids comedy TV show that was loved by adults, and that was a kind of, I mean, it seems strange to say a feminist reworking of Robin Hood, but it wasn't that kind of serious.
Right.
But yeah, Maid Marian was one with the brains, and Robin Hood was the kind of weak-willed, scaredy cat kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, Tony Robinson and Mark Billingham had worked on Maid Marian, and then they worked on Parallel 9 Series 2. Tony Robinson left up to go and do his Time Team stuff, and Peter Cox, who had worked with Sintel Woodrow, was brought in to partner Mark Billingham.
Right.
So, and Peter Cox and some of the production team and myself came over from WhatsApp Doc onto Parallel 9, the third season. So
right.
I did that, and then the show got cancelled.
Oh, no.
I was involved with lots of shows that kind of got cancelled after I'd been on them.
It's not cause and effect. I know it's not cause and effect.
No.
So I'm just going to move on to talking about you've done TV. You ended up making films, obviously. And we are getting some questions coming in, which I'm going to feed in because mostly people know you for your horror movies who are watching the show. So what was the first movie that you did? Was that Human Centipede 2, or had you done other stuff before?
Well, I'd done kind of short films before, like Brian Griffith's The Curl, and I can't remember the name of the director, but it's a short film called The Mourners, and then I did 2 feature films that I got edited out of. They shall remain nameless.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Human Centipede 2 was the first one I had a main role in, and it was also the first one. So it's the first one that I was in that got released. So, with me in it.
So how did you get Human Centipede 2? What happened there?
My agent called me up and said these people would need to go to a casting, and I went to the casting.
So
It's not, you know, it's not somehow, you know, there's no mystery about it.
there's no mystery about it. Had you seen Human Centipede at that stage?
No, I mean, what happened was my agent rang me up and said, "There's some people from Amsterdam that want you to be in their porn film." Now, I had just done a theatre piece called "The Man with the Absurdly Large Penis" at the Young Vic, but so I did wonder whether it was typecasting, you know. But yeah, I mean, the Man with the Absurdly Large Penis is a kind of tragicomedy kind of thing about a man that could die if he got an erection.
Oh, right, because of the blood flow.
It's
Yeah.
kind of, but it was a kind of absurdist comedy, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so I couldn't believe that that people that were making sex films were trying to contact me. So I said, "What's the project?" And he said, "The Human Centipede 2." I said, "Okay, ring them back and yes, I want to do that casting," because I'd heard of the Human Centipede from it being on it at Fright Fest. It would have been on at Fright Fest in August, and it was, I think it was kind of early. It was kind of like February or
Right.
something. By the time February, maybe early March, when they got the call.
Right.
So
Had you
no,
seen?
it's February.
You'd heard about it, but had you seen Human Centipede?
No, I hadn't seen it. I'd only heard about it. So
Right.
I read the reviews online, and they kind of, they were split. You know, some people loved it, some people hated it, which I thought was a good sign. So so yeah, on the day of my casting, I saw the first film for the first time, and then an hour and a half later, I had to be in the casting. So so I saw what a great performance Dieter gave
Yeah.
in the first one, and thought, gosh, I've got big shoes to fill. So yeah.
So you knew, obviously at that stage you knew what a huge role it was going to be, and did you?
Well, only at that stage, really. I mean, I kind of thought they were trying. I thought they were, when they said they wanted me for the main role, I thought that's great, but I'm sure when I get in there, they're going to then say, "Oh, well, actually, we want you for a smaller role." So I was still convinced that I was going to get a
you're
smaller
going to get
role
edited
on
out.
the main role. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, not edited out, but just given a different role.
Yeah. So you're there. You do the casting. What was the casting? Just a chat and with Tom Sixx, presumably.
Yeah, it was Tom and Alona, and Tom basically went through the whole film scene by scene and gave the whole narrative and talking about kind of camera angles and so on. And I kept kind of going, oh, that's just like the All Night Long trilogy, or oh, that's just like Guinea Pig, or oh, that's just like Society, the end of Society, and because like the first film, I could see all these different references, like to 70s policiers and The Vanishing, George Sousos's film, and things like that. So I kind of liked, and Saulo, obviously. So
Sure.
I could see the kind of high art and lowbrow kind of references in the first film. That kind of got me excited for working with Tom. So I was kind of excited when I went to the casting, more about Tom than about me getting the role. So I still didn't think I'd get the role.
Right.
So we were just chatting, and I was seeing different things referenced in what he was telling me about the narrative and so on of the second film.
Right.
And then he got me to do like to act out like Martin getting picked on at work, and then the scene, and then like tentatively he sort of started suggesting more and more kind of extreme scenes, like when the mother finds his scrapbook and he bashes her head in.
Yes.
And then it kind of ended up with the. Now, I'd like to see you attempt the rape scene. I mean, if you would, I mean, you know, if you don't feel up to it, that's fine. And I said, no, I don't think so. And yeah, so I was kind of, I didn't want to kind of thrust into empty air, or I had to kind of make it feel as if there was someone else there. And obviously when people are on all fours, they're at a certain height. So I flipped over a chair, and it's kind of about that height, and I hence everybody knows that I raped a chair.
Honestly, the things we do for art. This sounds like a long interview. How long were you in the audition for?
Yeah, well, I mean, usually, you know, as you know, I mean, you know, often you could be in an audition for like 5 minutes, but if they really like you, you're in for about 15 or 20.
Yeah.
This went on for 50. They ran out of videotape and everything. So, and like Tom and Rona were just liking everything I was doing, and I was getting on like a house on fire with Tom, and sort of seeing things in what he was telling me about the film, and so yeah, it was just ended up being one of the most pleasurable audition experiences I've had. So. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating! And then obviously you did
Yeah.
you did the filming, and if I'm going to start bringing in a few questions from our watchers, so bear with me for just. So this is from a gentleman called Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm alliterating. I'm squashing Scottish Geeks into Derek. He's also known as Scottish Geeks. Derek, seriously, Laurence, just how much fun was it with all those amazingly yucky special effects in the Human Centipede 2? So, yeah,
okay. Well, it was great because I'd kind of grown up reading Fangoria and Starburst and reading interviews with like makeup artists and practical special effects people, and it was great to actually sort of get your hands on something like the knee joints that Dan made, and things like the smashing in the teeth was great fun.
that is, yeah. I've got very sensitive teeth, and I'm going.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, that's the bit that makes me squeamish, kind of thing, you know. So, but yeah, so it was great to see what Dan and his team had done, and then also, you know, I didn't get to wear any prosthetics, which I was kind of saddened about. But at least I got to play with the objects that they made.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious that people don't realize you're obviously a big, as you say, you grew up reading Fangoria and so on. So you've had a love of horror or an interest in horror for a long time. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I'm one of those kids that always likes kind of monsters and Doctor Who and stuff when I was growing up, and I guess it's not just horror. I think it's horror and science fiction and fantasy. But yeah, I mean, it's always something in there. But I think it's more because horror and science fiction and fantasy have a kind of more visual imagination that's on screen. But I still, but within those kind of genres, I still see films as like something like that last year, Marion Bad, as being that kind of film as well, because it has that kind of imagination and that kind of both narratively and visually, that or something like a lot of Peter Greenaway's films. I'd still class them as kind of fantasy films in a way. So,
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I know what you. Yeah, the other. And speaking of visually, did Tom tell you that Human Centipede 2 was going to be black and white?
No, at the time he wanted it to be in a kind of silvery light. So he was going to drain color, and it was going to be more like a kind of Ken Loach film.
Uh-huh.
It was going to have that kind of British realist kind of look. That's what he was after at first. And it was only when he was playing around with the color and desaturating the color for me that he saw it in black and white and thought that had something to it. So the decision to make it in black and white was the decision for black and white was only made in the kind of post-production.
Interesting. I mean, it's in some way, I think it's more effective because if you've got too much color, it actually allows you to go in because it's not quite so revolting, and somehow you get more involved in what's going on.
I think it draws you into Martin's psychology and headspace more, in the sense that it's like it's not presenting itself as reality in a way. It's kind of presenting it as real to Martin.
Yes.
I mean, it's still kind of gritty and kind of honest in that kind of way, but it's very, it is very kind of subjective from Martin's point of view.
I have to say, of all three films, I think I prefer the second one over 1 and 2. I mean, and not just because. Well, I found myself enjoying number 1 far more than I was expecting to. I have to say. I mean, it's deeply, deeply disturbing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But it's so beautifully shot.
Yeah.
And
the performance of Deet's performance is so kind of tongue in cheek as well. So
but also kind of restrained, particularly in comparison with the third one. There is something very quietly insane about it rather than raving insane. I think it's the fact that is actually what is so chilling about the first one. So, and I think, whereas I'm not that worried about the third one entirely, I really like the second one for that. You know, the scenes at the end I find disturbing because they just look like news photographs of something horrendous. You know, Ouija, the New York photographer.
Yeah,
I've got
a big fan. It's
It's
Naked City. Was the book of a lot of crime photos and so on.
Yes, no, absolutely. Again, it's basically gangsters being shot up and so on. And he was always the first.
I've got that Feral House book it's called something like Death Scenes, a collection of a New York crime photographers professional photography kind of thing. So, but it was this one crime photographer from the 50s, I think, and it's all scenes of accidents and murders.
And I think
often like, there's a contemporary photographer that's kind of caught that same thing, but often with those photos, they kind of look normal except for one thing, and it'll be like a foot sticking out of from behind a bed, or it'll be the way that somebody looks asleep, but then there's like one eye open and rolled back, or just the odd angle of something, and you know, they don't need to be kind of blood splattered or something to disturb you.
No,
it's the most disturbing ones are the most serene ones in a way. So,
right. Okay, well, I'm going to because we're actually heading towards the end of the show, remarkably. But as long as you're happy to carry on chatting to us, I know these guys will hang around for an extra 15 minutes or so. I will invite anybody who wants to come on live and ask Laurence questions live. I know Derek wants to come on. Please make it known. In the meantime, whilst we're collecting that information, I've got some questions for you. This is from Kim Lehman. What film role is your favorite that you have played? And what horror movie is your all-time favorite?
Favorite role is probably yeah, it's probably Martin, just
Right.
because I guess I had more freedom with that, and it's more input into it, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. And what is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I always hate these questions because it's like, what I see as horror, somebody won't see as horror, and so on. So, and also to pinpoint one thing is difficult.
It's invidious. Yeah.
I love Freaks, the Todd Browning film, but then I see that more in relation to my interest in disability studies and so on. But then Carl Dreyer's The Vampire, Vampire, is also one of the most unsettling and I think underappreciated in the horror fandom. But I think it's one of the most effective horror films ever made.
Right. Sorry, and just to, from Laura Rother, Laurence R. Harvey is a Whovian. Any chance of finding out who his favourite Doctor is?
Well, I beg to differ. I'm not a Whovian. I'm just somebody that grew up in Britain with Doctor Who.
There's nothing wrong with being obsessed. A Whovian, by the way.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. But I know Whovians. I'm still friends with lots of Whovians. So yes, some of my best friends are Whovians. I have absolutely nothing against them. I wouldn't mind if my daughter married a Whovian, but I just don't want them round here. No, Doctor Who is just a presence in British culture. So my favourite Doctor Who, everyone's favourite Doctor Who is the one they grew up with.
Yeah.
So Tom Baker for me, because the 70s.
It's the same. Yeah. It's yeah. William Hartnell for me.
Right. Yes.
By that, William Hartnell. That's just giving my age away, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to start inviting people on in a few moments, but we're actually getting a lot of questions coming in. Right, and I know Derek wants to come on. Let me just ask, Alex Tim asks, Laurence, what role or character that you haven't done so far would you love to do? Something you have dreamed about doing since being in performance arts acting, a certain type of character, and why? So basically, what role or character you've not done would you like to do?
Well, I mean, the thing is, again, this is another difficult question, because to me, it depends upon what that character's doing in the main narrative, and whether the piece as a whole works. So, but I guess the short answer would be if they remade Mad Love, I'd love to play the Peter Lorre part. Or if they did a Peter Lorre biography, I'd love to do Peter Lorre. Or if they remade it's not Silent Night, Deadly Night, it's the other one, Christmas Evil, is it, with the guy that's the toy maker who works in the toy factory? I think it's Christmas Evil.
Christmas, I don't know this one. All I'm guessing is Willy Wonka.
No. I'd like to play the guy in Christmas Evil.
The guy in Christmas Evil. Okay, cool.
The main guy. He's obsessed with Christmas.
Right.
And he's kind of a nice guy, but kind of psychotic.
Okay, cool. Well, whilst I'm just going to take a quick. No, I'm trying to hold on. Bear with me for just 2 seconds, because what I'm going to have to do is to copy and paste some information from my Twitter screen. Hold on. Bear with us, folks. I just want to see if I can actually get some of you to come on. Jonathan. Hughes, I've got you, and Don Pettit. Don Pettit. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask, and this is really boring. This makes really fascinating. And Steve Zarebski. I'm trying to get you on as well. Steve Zarebski, I got you, and Tom Pettit, Jonathan Hughes, and Scottish. Ish. Okay, I'm having difficulty finding Scottish Geeks at the moment. I'm just going to add you three in. Derek, I will get you in as soon as possible. Okay, so we've got some more people coming in to join us. And people have been sharing some links to the Mondo. Oh, there's Don coming to join us.
Hello.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Don.
Hello, Lawrence, and hello, Nicholas. How are we?
Hi, all right.
We're very good.
Oh, there we are.
And there's Jonathan joining us.
Hello.
Hi, Jonathan.
Good day to you all.
We'll start with whoops, I'm getting all tangled up in me thing. With dangly earpiece. What? Don, we'll start with you first. You managed to make it in first. What's your question for Laurence?
Get it in first. I love it. Two things, actually. One was about the soundtrack that you're going to be doing up.
Oh yeah, it's not a soundtrack. It's an album. It's just a
like the LP.
Yeah.
Okay. You said it's coming out in very limited quantities. Is that only through Mondo, or were there other places that were picking it up as well?
Well, I mean, it's not definitely through Mondo yet. I'm just saying that they've expressed an interest.
Okay.
But yeah, you can order it direct from the label Static Caravan Records as well.
Okay. All right. And the other question did you your part in ABC's of Death 2?
Yeah.
At the very end there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you probably ended up finding out about it, but when they did the screening here at the Toronto After It Film Fest last year, did you hear about what happened during the Q&A? They did the Q&A while the credits were rolling.
They brought the lights up, brought the people on to do the Q&A, and then all of a sudden, come on.
It was funny because they were literally asking the one they asked the one director to talk about. I think it was W is for Wish, and just as he's about to, I was like, I can't wait to this. it was absolutely amazing. It was amazing. The whole theater was in an uproar. It was great.
That sounds fun.
Oh, it was good. It was hilarious. It was ridiculously hilarious. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
There's your 2 cents, right? Steve has joined us as well. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Hi, Steve.
Hi.
Oh, and Derek has joined us as well. Cool. All right. So, Jonathan was the next on. So,
Hi, Derek.
Hello.
Jonathan, you're next up. What's your question for Laurence?
Yeah, you've had a great career. You've worked with so many different actors and directors, but you still got miles to go, in my opinion. So I would have to ask you, if there's any director you would like to work with, who would it be? They sort of said you'd have...
Guy Madden.
Okay. And why? Tell us a bit about his work and what inspires you to work with him.
Because I think he's he's just an interesting director that knows about film history and uses that in his work. A lot of his films are either kind of pastiches of like silent films or early sound films, or kind of rich, saturated Technicolor films. And also, he's kind of very artistic, but also has a sense of humor and a sense of fun about his stuff. So yeah, I mean, Guy Madden, I'd love to work with. And also, his narratives are completely strange. If you've ever seen the saddest music in the world with Isabel Rossellini plays a beer heiress. who has got amputated legs and has these glass false legs that are filled with beer. And just the imagination. And, how can you not work with somebody who comes up with an idea like that? So that's Guy Maddin would certainly be my top of my list.
Okay. Cool. We'll move on to Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi.
Hi. And what's your question for Laurence?
What was it like working on the editor with Astron Sixx?
And it's fantastic. I mean, I was fans of Astron Sixx, and when I heard when we were shooting Call Girl, the short film by Jill Sixx, Tristan said she was working on the film, and that was kind of in the first set of shooting that they were doing. I was kind of envious that she got to work with Astron Sixx and I didn't. And then a few months later, Adam rang me up and approached me and said, "Look, we've got absolutely no, we've run out of money. Would you do it on the cheap?" And I jumped at the chance because I really like what Astron Sixx do, and also I like the idea of them doing a giallo film as well. So we managed to combine it with a convention in Canada so that the cost could be spread, or certainly the travel cost could be spread. And then, so I ended up working on it for a couple of days just to do those 3 or 4 scenes. And yeah, it was just like me, Adam and Matthew and the camera guys and sound guy just working in this church together. It was great fun.
Yeah,
I really like their sense of humour. So
yeah, I have both ABCs signed by Tristan Riska and the Soskas, and the editor signed by Tristan as well.
right, okay.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing the editor. Thank you, Don. Derek, what is your question for Laurence?
First off, damn you for making me feel nostalgic for What's Up, Doc. It's usually Balgits in my head now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I apologise for that.
Right, no, I really enjoyed the Human Centipede 2. I especially enjoyed watching my friend throw up and then followed up, of course, by me doing the same thing with the teeth scene. Thanks.
Yes.
But when the third one, I wasn't as keen on it, but I still enjoyed it. But I just want to know, were you and Dieter just like competing to see who could just be the sort of the best sort of angriest person in the lot kind of thing?
No, I mean, Tom had originally sort of approached me about it as me and Dieter being the Lauren Hardy of evil, and so I knew that I was always going to kind of counter what Dieter was doing anyway. So I tried to bounce
quite well off each other.
Yeah,
but
well,
one more thing is.
I think
one more thing is I want to hear that accent.
So yeah, that was a terrible accent. I am trying to be the anti-Meryl Streep, so. You'll, in Frankenstein Created Bikers, you will see my appalling Austrian accent. So please enjoy. Enjoy being tortured by my appalling accent.
Oh no, it was brilliant.
I can't wait.
I was going to mention how much I enjoyed your accent in Human Centipede 3. I thought you did very well. I love the whole look as well. That little moustache and the hair, and it looked great. Whilst we're talking about Frankenstein Created Bikers, I haven't had a chance to ask you a little bit more about that. What is that project?
It's a sequel to Dear God No. Dear God No was kind of tough exploitation biker film that really, I mean, it is really offensive. but it's one of those films that has such glee in its offensiveness that I kind of really enjoyed it. And I got to know Jimmy and the guys that made it, and then when James was kind of talking to me about Frankenstein Creative Bikers 2, I agreed to do it, and that was a few years ago, and then it's only like this year that we've got to film it because of getting funding and so on. And this Frankenstein Creative Bikers is a lot more of a, I guess, a horror film rather than a kind of exploitation film. So it's not as offensive as the first film, but it's more kind of fantastical and enjoyable, I guess. So.
Okay, and another film I haven't asked you about, of course, is Banjo. How did you get involved in Banjo?
I needed money.
It's a really stupid question to ask. You're absolutely right. That's my fault. I've got to try and phrase these things differently.
You get kind of sent scripts and so on, and people asking you, and then Liam sort of said, "Well, I'm really influenced by Trauma," and I kind of thought, "Oh God, I'm not a Trauma fan." And also knowing Astron 6 and knowing how Trauma deals with the business end of things, I'm not the biggest fan of Trauma. Right. But yeah, I don't like their aesthetic and so on. Anyway, so so he sent me the script, said I'm influenced by Trauma, so I didn't read it. And then a few people I knew were involved with the project, so then I decided to read it, and I really enjoyed what Liam had sent me, and the scenes with my character in Banjo, I thought were really moving and very well written. So I then turned around and said, "Oh, is it still available?" And, yeah, I'll be up for doing it. So.
It's interesting because it's a lovely portrayal. I really like your part in Banjo.
It was just so well written, so it really appealed to me to do that. And then also, I guess the final film isn't. Although I can see that kind of Trauma influence, it's more kind of like a Frank Henlotter film. But with this kind of extreme. It's basically about somebody snapping their banjo strap on their penis.
Yes.
And a lot of blood.
And Liam gave us the backstory in that one. Yeah. It's amazing. It's two young men have told that story on this show. It's amazing how often it happens. Yes, people really need to be more careful. There's a gentleman. I'm just going to feed into another question, gentlemen. If you do have more questions to ask Laurence, Derek, Don, Jonathan, and Steve, do please raise a hand just so I can see. Hi guys, I think the Lorry thing is interesting. Laurence seems to be channeling Peter Lorre from his Corman AIP pictures of the 1960s on the Rats shoot. There is a knowing sense of mischief in your performance. Been working on the edit today, so I've spent a goodly while looking at the two of you. What better way to spend a Sunday afternoon? And that's from Mark Logan.
Tell me, you should be working.
Yeah. Yes,
get back to work.
Yeah, get back to work, Mark. You should be editing, not enjoying yourself watching this. Jonathan has another question. Sorry, just to explain just to remind folks, Laurence and I the first time I met Laurence was actually at Fright Fest, which was before the filming of Rats. But Laurence and I had a great joy of working together. We're doing 2 night shoots together, basically. Yeah.
But we've kind of known of each other through Without Your Head because we've both been guests and regular contributors on that. So. Yeah. So kind of circled around each other, but it was just such a nice moment when you kind of just smiled and just said, "Nick, hi Nick," in the pub at Fright Fest. I thought, oh, he's a really nice guy. John, so yes, Mark, you should be editing. What are you doing watching us?
But keep an eye out for Rats, folks. It's going to be on the festival circuit once Mark finishes getting the edit together and so on, which he's not.
He's a lazy fuck. So.
Yeah. Those were his words, Mark, not mine.
I mean them with the good rapport and bonhomie that a good friend has.
Jonathan, it was great fun. We really did have good fun on that shoot. I'm looking forward to seeing what's come out of it as well. Jonathan, you had another question. What's your question?
I think you all just answered it. It was about the rat shoot, but I will ask, what was it like working with Jessica Messenger? I just saw her Final Girl short yesterday, which is on YouTube for a limited time. Final Girl, she's pretty awesome in that. So I have to ask, what was it like working with Jessica Messenger? This is for both of you.
From my point of view, she was great. But then I didn't have any scenes with her. Nick had all the scenes with her.
Yes.
The scene I had with her got cut because of rogue ghost chasers.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
But
yeah.
I know Jessica had worked with Emma Locke, who from Human Centipede 2. They'd worked on a film together, and that's how I first knew about Jessica. And then, so it was nice to finally meet. But yeah, Nick.
Jessica was wonderful. Jessica was absolutely great, and I can't remember if I've told this story before. If not, if I have, I apologize. But basically, Jessica and I have really rather intimate scene at one point, and we did the first take, and it was just like it was about 30 seconds or so. And then the next time we did a take, Jessica and I are going, he's going to say cut in a moment. He's definitely going to say cut in a moment. And what felt like 2-3 minutes later, Mr. Logan actually said cut.
Oh, Nick, you dog, you.
Aww.
So, Jessica, it was very interesting working with Jessica. She's a lovely lady. She's a great actress. She's a really, really nice actress. I think she's, as you'll see when you get to see Rats. But that was that one moment where I was thinking, he's going to say cut. He's just going to say cut at some point. Cool. Those have been some great questions. Gentlemen, do you have any more questions for Laurence? Yes, Derek. Derek, what can we do you for?
Now, Laurence, with your experience doing like Saturday morning shows and things like that, and now you've done a lot of horror as well, you ever thought about combining the two? Because that's something I would watch.
Yeah, no, I think there should be far more killing of children in mainstream Western horror. I mean, it happens in Asian cinema. I just think we should bring it over here.
I think they tried it with Alien vs Predator Requiem. I'm pretty sure one kid died in Alien vs Predator Requiem.
Yeah.
Some sort of acid thing happened to him.
There's that great scene in Maximum Overdrive.
Oh yeah.
Basically, a kindergarten body count is what we need.
Yes, yeah. I'll play the kind of Arnie role.
Kindergarten body count. That's a good name for a movie.
Yeah.
Patent pending.
Just call it Fish in a Barrel.
I could totally see Laurence as like some sort of twisted new Crypt Keeper sort of thing on Saturday morning cartoons.
Hey, come on, kids! It's time to learn to count.
All right, you win.
And you got the little heads showing up at the bottom of the screen.
Come on.
Yes.
I'm still trying to get past the fact that there's a movie that's based around a guitar strap and a penis. That's got me completely just. I'm still trying to process that information.
It's real.
First it's barbed wire, now it's a guitar strap. What's next?
That was a question about barbed wire.
The banjo string is the colloquial term for a ligament that attaches the meatus to the shaft. Would say, underneath the foreskin. Well, it attaches the foreskin to the meatus, I think. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And who says you don't learn something new every day? Wow!
Again, coincided with
Chattering with Nicholas Finch is now educational.
Discovery Channel.
I really want to get some women onto this channel, these hangouts along the bottom, because I'm sure there would be very different conversations if I had some lovely ladies.
Oh, it's Sandra on it.
Incidentally, Mark Logan's just shared, I am multitasking. Love you too. Oh God, damn Ghost Hunters. I'll be having nightmares tonight. That scene should be a 20-minute outtake.
When is Rats going to be released in Canada?
It's going to be in. We don't know yet because it'll. I don't know. Mark may be able to type in a message, but basically it'll go onto the festival circuit. It's first. It's a short film, so it'll go onto festival circuit first. I can't speak. That's all I know. I know Mark's trying to get it done as quickly as possible for certain festivals. Then it'll be sometime next year. You'll be able to see it, Steve.
Cool.
I'm sure we'll post on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. If it's on like Toronto After Dark or something like that. So.
Yeah. It'll be yes, no, absolutely. There's a Facebook page which you can like for updates and so on. And Mark's is very good about keeping that up to date. Incidentally, speaking about beautiful women, I'm going to start writing this down, folks. Speaking of beautiful women coming on the show, on the 15th of November, Jen and Sylvia Soska will be joining me on Chattering with Nicholas Vince, and we will be talking about Elevator and Night Nurse and other things, basically, and all the things that they've been up to, because they've been up to an awful lot in the last few...
There was the news this week about the O'Lantern family, which...
Podmasters thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I back that as well.
Pumpkin stuff is always fun. Pumpkin stuff is always fun.
And this is my ignorance, because I have been in pre-production all this week. I've hardly been online. Tell me a little bit more, Laurence.
The O'Lantern family were there's a special effects guy that used to make these. Are they toys? But they're pumpkins with grotesque faces,
right.
and they were kind of collectible toys back when. Now they're being relaunched, and Jen and Sylvia are going to be doing a kind of animated TV special, and they approached me about it, and they've just launched a Kickstarter appeal. And so I'll be doing one of the voices. Tristan will be doing one of the voices. Seth Green from Family Guy, and so we'll be doing one of the voices.
Wow.
So yeah, it'll be a special for next Halloween. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry too, apparently.
That sounds really exciting. Okay, I'll make sure if I got some links up and so on. As I say, sorry folks, I've literally just been in pre-production all this week, and I've been so offline. Either that or filming in silly wigs. Cool.
The O'Lantern thing is kind of like it's almost like if you take the Halloween version of the California Raisins, and you put it to, and you put it to pumpkins.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to share the final comment of the evening. This is from James Hamer Morton, who Laurence may know. That is the most eloquent description of snapping your banjo string I have ever heard. Nice one, Laurence.
Ah!
Now you know.
And on that note, folks...
James plays the lead in Banjo. That's who it happens to in the film.
Yes.
And it's very bloody because all your capillaries, the densest amount of capillaries in your body is down there.
Yes.
Oh.
Twang.
Yes. And on that note, gentlemen, I'm definitely going to end this broadcast. There's no chattering with Nicholas Vince next week because I'm away filming in Ireland. I'll tell you more about that when I get back, and when I get back with the Suska sisters. And then there will be more shows which I will be announcing soon into November and December. But definitely come back and join me in 2 weeks' time.
I will definitely. Now that my stuff is working.
No, sorry, Steve, I missed that entirely. Anyway, this has been...
I will join you next week.
You will, yes, week after. Join me the week after with the Suskas. Cool. I just want to say thank you very much indeed to the gentlemen for joining me, particularly to Laurence Harvey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just say one thing.
Yes, of course.
Just give a shout out to my girlfriend Katie.
Oh, that's so sweet. This is where all these big horror fans go, oh, that's so nice.
We go from talking about snapping banjo strings to saying hi to the girlfriend. I'm loving this. I'm selling my banjo, by the way.
Stop now. Right, this has been Chattering with Nicholas Vince. I've been chattering with Laurence Harvey and Jonathan and Derek and Steve and Don. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks if I can stop laughing. And I will see you all then. Good night. Just say good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.